Hello and welcome to Along the Way Life's Journey. I'm your host, Carl Buccellato. Well, this Sunday was the first day of spring in the United States. The sun was shining, things were beautiful, people were out mingling around, and it happened to be Palm Sunday. So that means that millions and millions of people went to church to give thanks and to celebrate the entry of Jesus into Jerusalem and his expected entry with celebrations of palm fronds. And that it's been used for thousands of years to celebrate that particular day. So people all over the country were celebrating. They were celebrating their version of the King of Kings, the King the Lord has sent to us. At the same time, throughout the United States and some other countries as well, there are groups of people joining together, some tens of thousands of them, not millions like the first mentioned group, but maybe tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 collectively through the whole thing. And they were gathering together to protest and display their belief of no kings. Okay, what does no kings mean? If it's in the United States, that certainly isn't our political structure because we got rid of the kings in 1776. So, what do they mean by no kings? And these things were organized by the usual culprits that put together these kinds of events because pictures of these events were throughout the United States, and people, in addition to showing Iranian flags and Mexican flags and gay pride flags, they were flying the communist flags, red flag with a hammer and sickle in the United States, and openly declaring communist revolution, communist revolution. So here we have people who are supporting it from the Democratic Party, and they're there supporting no kings because what they're really saying is anti Trump. So they're saying no kings, and they're standing next to people who are supporting Iran, not the people of Iran, but the government of Iran. And they're supporting the demonstrators who are anti ICE, and they're supporting the various other groups that all contributed in collectively tens of millions of dollars funneled through the George Soros organization to provide services and money to make these things happen. Clearly anti American, clearly distorted viewpoints. And so, yeah, I looked at some of these news reports, and I understand that while the liberal press is biased in one direction, the conservative press may be biased in the other. Maybe they're only showing some people who are specifically fruitcakes are crazy, but there seems to be quite a lot of them. People with multicolor hair, people with rings all over the place, and one lady proudly carrying a sign.
I'm just waiting for the big, beautiful obituary. And I think a lot of people are waiting for that too.
When do you think that'll happen?
Sooner than later.
All right.
So George Soros, that famous name, the billionaire socialist who has been for generations supporting everything anti-American and anything anti, commerce or free will or the American way of life or capitalism. He's made fortunes doing it, but he's anti all of that stuff because he's pro one world group who wants to eliminate the shining light of the American economy and the American experiences, how it has succeeded all over the world. So tens of millions of dollars come in through him to serve these people. And some people say, well, that's because Trump wants to be a king. I don't understand that. He won an election, fair and square. It was a popular election. He's in office as president for his second and final term. He's not a king. There are no kings in the United States. There are only elected representatives. And sometimes I know that the Senate and the House of Representatives have people in there that, like Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and this other screwball from up northwest there, who is a communist. And they've been in the Senate seats there in the Senate for 40 and 50 years, living off you and me. 40 and 50 years. And they call Trump a wannabe king. They don't want to let go of their power. They don't want to surrender. They don't want to let some new blood in there. They fight like crazy to keep it. And they imagine all kinds of harebrained ideas to make this country different. Well, they know it's not going to change, but they know that turmoil causes distraction. and with distraction, a great deal of anger in the United States, different people separating, looking at things differently. And that's what causes so much of the money that flows through to be lost. Look at all the fraud that happened in Minneapolis. Look at the fraud that's happened in California. Hundreds of millions, billions of dollars lost in fraud that could go for the benefit of the people of the United States. Because after all, it's their tax money that's being defrauded. So why does this happen? Why do people follow these other people who are clearly so deranged, so clearly so power driven? Why did they do such things? You would look at this from the outside and you say to yourself, well, common sense tells you the destruction of the civilization that has been so prominent and bringing such good around the world doesn't make any sense. So why would they go after it? Why would they endorse policies that say you can do surgical reconstruction on children to change their gender? But so much evidence has proven that that's so harmful, so destructive to so many people. Why would they support such things? Why would they support open borders that bring in tens of millions of people when every day we're finding out that these people are coming in and being sent to certain sections in the country in order to change the politics of that country, that region, change the way it votes, change the manner in which people vote. So this whole Save America Act that's before Congress right now, that's talking about requiring U.S. citizenship and identification, photo identification, in order to vote, they're blatantly against that. The Democratic Convention last year required two forms of photo identification for people to get into their convention center. You go to a dentist, you got to show your ID. You go to pick up a prescription, you got to show your ID. Why is it that the most sacred thing in America, the vote of the people, cannot be as clearly and legally identified as something that must be protected through the simple thing of being a U.S. citizen and providing a photo identification? Why would they fight against that? Well, clearly, a number of the Democrats have said very blatantly. Schumer himself says the Republicans are trying to do this because 10 million people will be taken off the voter roll. 10 million people taken off the voter roll. What that means is he thinks 10 million people cannot find adequate identification or proof of citizenship, which means they're probably not U.S. citizens, which means they've been defrauding the voting system for a long time. Just doesn't make any sense to me. Just doesn't make any sense. It's about as illogical to me as when I saw on the press these demonstrations of no king that were taking place in the UK.
As thousands of activists turned out for the Together Alliance March, the biggest ever demonstration against the far right. But onlookers and commentators were confused about the purpose of the rally, with a whole host of flags being waved, including the trans, Hamas, Palestinian, IRGC, ISIS, and Hezbollah flags. The protest coincided with the annual No Kings March in the US, which attracted the same types of criticism.
So these No Kings rallies actually look pretty representative to me of the Democratic coalition. I saw people flying the hammer and sickle in New York City. I saw Hezbollah flags. I saw Hamas flags. I saw Palestinian flags. I saw trans signs. I see weirdo liberal boomers out there. This is pretty representative of the Democratic coalition, and that's who funds it as well, by the way.
Well, they have a king in the UK. Were they talking about the abdication or the overthrow of the monarchy in their country? The monarchy that everyone says, oh, we have to get rid of that king, they don't want to, but they don't stop and do it. And you know why they don't do it? Because the monarchy brings in tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars into the UK from tourism. People who want to come in and witness what's going on with the king and the queen and the changing of the guard and the castles and the palaces. It's a tremendous draw commercially. So they'll never get rid of the king and queen in England. Just nonsense. All this action and diversion is just meant to cause distraction. Just distraction. So what are we going to do about it? We have to realize, I said first, tens of millions of people went to church on Sunday. They went to church. So many of them young people were going back to churches. They're going back to churches looking, seeking They want to find God more prevalently in their life because the American education system and the media and all of the secular things have failed them. They realize they've failed them. They realize that there's something missing in their lives, something perhaps you and I, as we were growing up, had and took for granted: a family structure, community, people who knew you, church structure, find a place where you recognize that you belong to something, that you're part of something bigger, and that God is intervening in your life if you allow him to. Everywhere you look, you can find the presence of your Lord if you look. So, when I hear people say no kings, I go back to my original statement: accept the King of Kings, accept our God, because he is the King of Kings. There's no doubt about that. Everywhere it's accepted at this point that the Messiah has come. He's the King of Kings. Now, I know not everyone believes in it. I know not everyone believes in God at all. I have a very dear friend who proclaims to be an atheist. He says he doesn't believe in God. And yet, the more I talk to him and the more we talk and communicate, and the more I hear the essence of his soul, I know the man has an empathy for human beings. I know he believes in a higher destiny. I know that he understands intellectually that there's more in life. Every time we have a friend or someone that we know who's struggling in one way or another, I say to him, we have to pray for these people. He says, God bless them. So there is a place in our life for a higher power, for our God. For me, it's Jesus. For you, it may be something else. But for me, there's only one way. It's Jesus. Okay? That's the entree. But we must recognize that our children, our sacred future, has to have our hand in our support. That we cannot allow, again, the wackos to take control of the school system, to create a system where people are lost without futures, lost without goals, without foundation. Look at all these terrible shootings that are taking place across the country. Look at all these terrible young people who are committing suicide. That's horrible because they don't have a foundation. They just don't have a foundation. No kings. I think they deserve a king, the right king. I don't think these political people who are misguided because they've watched the media who at the it's very clear the public media is failing. The public media in print is failing commercially even. The reports just came out recently that readership have diminished enormously. The New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, all down to a fragment of people who used to read these subscriptions. Now they send out emails, get it for $1 a month or $1 a week or whatever it is, begging people to come back. Well, they're not going to come back because they get nothing but biased reporting in that. And Americans are not so immune to reality that they can buy that kind of nonsense forever and ever. Eventually, the truth comes out. And when the truth comes out, and the press has been admonishing one end and applauding another end, and it's clear that the end that they're applauding has been biased and not truthful reporting, people have had enough of it. People have had enough. They're weary. They won't believe it any longer. So what are we going to do about this? Well, we have this backswing of things going on in our churches across the country. We have young people by the tens of thousands coming back in. Those of us who belong to a church have to support the church's effort to reach out to young people and bring them in, stand firm on what we believe, never back away again. There was a group of people in the colonies, before it was the United States, a group of men in the colonies called the Black Robes. And they were primarily pastors and preachers in churches throughout the colonies, the 13 colonies, who recognized and stood for the independence of the colonies before it was even known as the United States. They all declared that, as it says in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, that in our very foundation, every man has a right, and the human right is infallible. It's given by God. No one can take it away. No monarchy can destroy this for us. And so those men who are the Black Robes made these proclamations, and they encouraged people to come to terms with the reality that we could not remain serfs of a king. And so the American Revolution took place. And many of those men, most of those men, were captured by the British, and they were killed. Many of them were hung. Many of them were thrown into prisons and died in prisons. But they stood for what they believed in. And I think that we have to have proud, strong pastors in our churches who must stand and speak the word of God and the patriotism in the United States, for the United States. We must do that. We would be a failing country if we don't. So we look at these people who, George Soros, who tons and tons of millions of dollars into overthrowing the American way of life. They actually showed films in the newsreels this week of people staging in New York City with a communist flag, a red flag with the hammer and sickle on it, and proclaiming and saying out loud, "Communist revolution. We need a communist revolution." Well, that's what happened in Russia 100 years ago. And look what happened to them. A handful of nuts got control of a country, destroyed it, had a power play that tried to take over the world and were responsible for the deaths of hundreds of millions of people. And now that's gone. But their format has remained, the communist format has remained in many countries. It exists in China. It exists in Cuba. It exists in Vietnam. People still believe in that. But they believe in it because there are strong-arm governments that demand they believe in it. They have no freedom. They have no rights. The people in Iran are 90 million strong, but they cannot overthrow the handful, the 5 or 10% that are in control, because they have all the power, all the guns, all the control. So 90 million people are virtually servants and slaves. They have nothing to say about it. This is one of the reasons we've gone in there to change the regime in Iran. Firstly, they had nuclear aspirations and missiles that could bring it out to throughout Europe. Now we know that they have missiles that could reach Paris and London, Madrid. They will soon have missiles that could reach the United States. And they would soon have, they have already 900 pounds of improved uranium that could be made into dozens of warheads, nuclear warheads. It could take out millions of people with a single shot. And you look at the atrocities and what they have condoned over the years. Do you have any doubt that they would use it? They certainly would. They would take out Israel in a heartbeat. They're already attacking their neighbors with these missiles. And if they had nuclear capability and a warhead now, they had to be stopped. They had to be stopped for militaristic reasons, and they had to be stopped for humane reasons. 90 million people are enslaved in that country. Can't be allowed. No kings? I agree. No kings, no queens, no jacks. Let's play poker. I believe in the American way of life, and I hope you do too. I hope you stand for it. I hope you speak it out. And when the time comes for election, don't be fooled by all the ridiculous press that's going to tell you everything that's not true. Look through that. Learn for yourself. Listen to different places. Listen to different radio programs. Listen to the news in different areas, conservative as well as the open press. Balance out what you see. Balance out what you hear. Don't be fooled. We are the greatest country in the history of the world. We have done more for mankind than any other country in the history of the world. And we will do even more as we go forward. God bless this country, and God bless every one of you. Love somebody today. Get them in a big hug. Tell them you love them. It's an important thing.